you to comment in the chat. And if you're listening to this later on, comment. What do you have to say? Let's hear it, whether it's on social media, whether it's on the YouTube page for Locked on the Portal, whatever it may be. Let's hear what you have to say. But to start, I'm going to give my take on why the Damon Williams at LSU situation not only impacts the Tigers, the Huskies, the Big Ten, and the SEC, but every player and person that's involved with college football. If NIL contracts are not held accountable between the two parties, then what's the point of contracts? And I know they're not employees before anybody comments. Totally get that. But if they're not, we're not going to have rosters because everybody tampers a little bit here and there and some more than others. But if this goes through and Damon Williams can go to LSU without any repercussions, then we don't have rosters at all. There will be players that magically sit out from one school because they got an offer from another in the middle of the season, and they're going to be like, look, we'll give you this money, but you can't take the chance of getting hurt. You got to drop out. We're also going to have scenarios where guys literally, this is eventually going to happen, literally try to transfer even after a season has started. They're going to really challenge the portal window. This goes back to the Xavier Lucas situation from Wisconsin to Miami, but this would be the second one because he transferred after the portal window. That never really changed anything. If this happens again, it's over with. So I'm not trying to pick on Damon Williams, but for the sake of college football, if this happens, it is going to be Katie bar the door. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to try to go into the lawyer side of this. I'm just talking about repercussions, whether or not it's enforceable, whether it's not. Every state is different. That's for the lawyers to discuss. I'm just talking about one simple precedent. College football going down a path that is going to be very difficult to get out of if Damon is allowed to, A, sign an NIL deal that also has within it, allegedly, a contract agreement that says he can't get into the portal and then he transfers anyway. What's the point of the contracts? There has to be something that holds the player, the agent, the agency, whatever it may be, to the fire. There's no shortcut here. There won't be anything that's really true when you see like LSU roster, Fresno State roster, Michigan State roster. Is it really? Because that player can leave whenever they want. Doesn't matter what they sign. Is it really a roster, or is it just players on a list that they might be there? This is not a good sign for college football. And I'm not going to get into the tampering thing and all that just yet. We'll get into that in a moment. But just look at this big picture and ask yourself, how is this going to work itself out in a quote unquote positive way if this goes through? I don't see it. Now, to that end, let's talk about the tampering and all that stuff. Whether somebody wants to go down that path, that's up for them to decide. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can look at this, but here's my take on it. These are the questions that I have. Number one, if NIL contracts are not enforceable, what are we doing? Talked about that already. Why Damon Williams to LSU makes sense. I'm going to bring that up because for those two parties specifically, it actually does. If no repercussions, are there really any rosters? We talked a little bit about that. Who should be getting sued? I want to throw out my thoughts. And if you're a lawyer or just have an opinion, again, fire away in the chat. And finally, what if your school was the one tampering with Williams? Be honest. Take your colored glasses for whatever institution you root for. Take them off. Take them off. Would you turn the other cheek? I've asked this in some other situations on some private message boards, et cetera, over the years. It's roughly 50% are okay with it because they just can't stand to lose. I'll give the people credit on that last one. And half of them are like, no, I'd rather not do it. I'm curious what the take is with this because it's such a public situation. And I also think because so many people find Kiffin to be appalling, they don't like his personality or his tweets, kind of old school people especially don't like him. This will be a very interesting discussion. But let's go through these again. We've kind of touched on the NIL contracts are not enforceable. Let me bring up what little I know from just kind of chatting with lawyers. Look, it's not an employee. It's a 1099 and it's NIL. He doesn't have a contract necessarily that states he has to be at Washington yet. Basically a contract stating he's got certain things to do. That's how I know that this is awkward. And if it says Washington in the contract, I have not looked at it. that gets into a whole nother realm. But I'm assuming this is more third party stuff, like what he has to do for the boosters or whatever party it is. And again, if that's not the case, that's a whole nother deal. But I don't think the schools can hold him accountable to them unless he is an employee. If you're a lawyer, fire away on this. But I don't think an NIL contract's the same thing in any way, shape, or form. That's awkward. Number two, why does Damon Williams to LSU make sense? Well, there's two reasons. Number one, schematically, he fits what Lane Kiffin does. And for those of you who don't know, Damon is originally from Arizona and originally committed to Kiffin at Ole Miss before decommitting, committing to Arizona. Then Jed Fish ends up signing with Washington. He goes up there. So he followed the coach that he got second time commitment. And now it looks like he's trying to go back to the original. Of course, LSU is a whole nother deal, especially if the numbers are true that it's $5-6 million, because it looks like Levitt's not going to go to LSU. So scheme fit, familiarity, LSU's got money. For those who don't know, they were doing this special deal with Nike. LSU's a big Nike school. And in addition to like the rev share and some other opportunities, Nike's sponsoring specific players there. They already got like 10. I don't know if Damon would be on that list or additional or however they would do it. But there's a lot of different opportunities at LSU. They're a little more unique, at least for now. This probably get copied by most schools. Maybe he thinks he's going to recoup some of that. I don't know. But Fish's offense allows Damon to do a lot of things. But LSU and Kiffin is pretty darn good. You have to give the guy credit. He can coach quarterbacks and receivers. That's pretty well known. So I get it. Just from their perspective, take the litigation out of it. I understand the interest, but again, like 4 days after you sign it, it's pretty awkward. Again, no repercussions. Are there really any rosters? I'm going to keep saying that because this is my biggest fear. I want everybody's comment on that, whether you're in the chat, whether you listen to this later. How would you look at it? Whatever school, like if you're Boise State and you have some quarterback that's under the radar in a couple of years and LSU comes calling, you've already got the NIL deal with them. Do you really think you can outbid not only LSU, but Nike? Really? Probably not. And here's another one. This is where it's going to get really touchy. It doesn't have to be LSU, but this scenario can play out at a lot of schools. What happens, and this is definitely going to happen, because especially with Nike, because they represent so many schools, when a team represented by Nike tries to steal a quarterback from another school also represented by Nike, and they're talking about the money, that gets very awkward. So you're betting against yourself essentially, and that's very touchy. That's something that somebody else that really likes to dive into this stuff will do better than me, but I just want to bring it up. Who should be getting sued? This is just my opinion, and I certainly, again, I am not in any way, shape, or form a lawyer. I did not go to law school. I have no interest, but this is something I think will eventually happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen now. Eventually, instead of the player getting sued or whatever, it's the coach, not the school, the coach at the other school that is going to get sued, like personal lawsuits. Eventually, that's going to happen, especially with a guy like Kiffin, who's not exactly the most popular person in the coaching circuit amongst fans, amongst boosters from other schools. Remember, these collectives are boosters. It's not the school necessarily that would be suing Kiffin in this case, or whatever coach it might be. It would be the collective for trying to steal their investment. There's a lot of different ways I could see that going. I could see that. Maybe that happens. Maybe that doesn't. But at some point, I have a feeling the fear of that litigation is going to come into play. I'm not saying it's going to be here. I don't know what Washington's boosters or whatever are going to do. But do not be shocked if that eventually happens. Just something to think about. Finally, again, just going to keep asking this. If you're not an LSU fan and you're listening to this podcast, whether it's live or later on, if your school was in this exact same scenario, be honest. Would you be against it if you knew your school was getting an A+ quarterback for the offense that you run? Take your colored glasses off. Put your honesty hat on. Would you be okay with it if it meant more wins? I think roughly 50 to 60% of the people, because it's their school, aren't going to care. We got to be honest as a society. We don't do well with losing in any way, shape, or form. American society needs to, I'm on my political side here, just in general, and I'm talking about like Republicans, Democrats, just anything. We suck at losing. We are poor losers in anything. College football is pretty darn near the top. The elite fans, the ones that are truly into it with all their might, yeah, they can't handle it no matter what the reason is. So again, if you don't agree with this scenario, cool. But if the shoe was on the other foot and this was your school, would you speak up or would you go silent? So, with all of that in mind, I want to kind of look at this from a perspective of, hey, what are we going to do about this? I want you to think about it. I want your comments, not only in the chat, not only like right after this show coming on. This is something we're going to revisit over and over again. It's very, very important because if we don't fix this pretty quick, this is going to spiral out of control. And maybe this case, like there's only two schools involved here, Washington and LSU, allegedly. Who knows? Maybe he's looking at some others too. I'm not sure. But eventually it's going to be your school. And even if it's not your school getting the player that goes to another school, that's going to be your arch rival. How are you going to feel about it then? If you're an Alabama fan, you're right now, you're like, oh, this sucks. We don't want Kiffin to have Damon Williams. If you're an Arkansas fan, this sucks. If you're an A&M fan, this sucks. It impacts people in a lot of different ways. So when we come back, we'll talk more about it. We'll also get into some of the latest commitments and some of the things going on. That is next right here on the Portal Podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Rocket Money. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming. Between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes into play, the personal financial app that helps you take control. Rocket Money helps you find and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can actually grow your savings instead of losing them. So if you have, like me, subscriptions for streaming services, sometimes you watch a show, maybe like college football, there's certain ones that I have certain parts of the year and some that I don't. If you don't turn it off, they're not going to stop taking that money. And that's a low-hanging fruit. How about this? If you're somebody that likes to go get DoorDash or whatever it may be, there are hundreds of different sites like that send all these opportunities to you, but there might be a fee that you're not thinking about. It could be a lot of different things. Did you turn it off when you're not using it? That's something that Rocket Money can help you with. So let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. rocketmoney.com/locked on. If you want to take your game to the next level, check out our Everydayer Club right here on the Portal Podcast. Description down below. Hit the link. It'll describe more, but here's the basis. If you want to take your ads off, no ads, that's cool. All you got to do is check it out for $5 a month or for $50 for the entire year. No ads on your audio, none at all. So whether you're going to the gym, long drive, long walk, whatever it is, take the podcast with you. Check out the Everydayer Club down below in the description. All right, now let's talk a little bit about what college football thinks. I think about half the fans are going to be kind of iffy on it because it's so confusing and it's a lawyer issue. Totally get that. I'm in that boat with you. But as more information comes out, here's my prediction. More and more people are going to be mad because of some of the things I said right before the break. What happens if a guy like this, again, I'm just using the Damon to LSU situation as a possibility. It could be a million different scenarios because if this does go through, again, it's a precedent because not only is it a good player, it's a quarterback. It changes a conference race. It changes rivalries. It changes a school's budget. It changes a school's ability to get enrollment. Think about this. Several different teams, whether it's NCAA tournament, whether it's college football playoff, when they make a run, I don't know why it's this way, but academically, all of a sudden, you get a lot more applications just for regular students. They make more money. They get more selective. It impacts people across the United States. But let's be more specific. Let's just say you're a Florida Gator fan. What if Georgia did this? It's not like Kirby Smart needs any help. If some kid, and I'm not saying Georgia is, I'm just using them as an example, but if some kid signed a deal, max school, but he's a kid that's been under the radar, had a really good sophomore year, Kirby wanted that guy. Contract signed, NIL signed. Again, Georgia doesn't need a whole lot of help. Do you think Florida, who's an arch rival, Do you think Georgia Tech? Do you think Tennessee? Do you think Alabama? Do you think any of those schools would be happy about that? Of course not. This is going to impact everybody. It changes the rankings. It changes the college football playoff rankings. This is a ripple down effect across the landscape. So what can be done about it? This is where I make my traditional statement. This drives me bananas. The NCAA, until otherwise proven, is as toothless as it gets. The Xavier Lucas situation last year went into litigation, and again, that's not my bag, but Xavier Lucas is going to play for Miami against Ole Miss. So obviously, not much happened. I don't know if there was a private settlement or anything like that, but not to my knowledge. And he left like after the portal. Has the NCAA got any ability to enforce laws, or do they even care? They just cashing checks, hanging out at the office, and eating ice cream. Right now, it's looking like the latter. So if that's the case, why would anybody believe this isn't about to blow up in a bad way? Because there is one thing about the profession of law and litigation in general that I am 100% steadfast with. It is slow to get done. Lawyers are infamous if they know they're probably going to lose, finding ways to quote unquote draw it out, push back court dates. And even if you lose in the long run, school may not mind. Like if you, let's say you get a guy and you win a title, then 5 months after the title, you lose the lawsuit. Well, the money you made for winning that title will definitely offset the $5 million you lost. I'm just throwing out numbers. So help me out here. Like, what's the best way to fix this beyond the NCAA actually doing its job, which apparently is, until otherwise proven, not very likely. So with that, I'm going to open it up to the chat a little bit here. We'll have a little bit of fun. Anything you want to talk about is fine, but I absolutely do want to talk about demand as much as we can, because that's the biggest topic right now with the transfer portal. Happy Thursday afternoon, Portal Podcast Nation. What's going on, Mr. Salty Peanuts? I saw a fun meme. Lane Kiffin is leaving LSU to be the president of Venezuela. I saw that too. Whoever did that is hilarious. That was really good. I saw it on Instagram or X or one of those. Jameson Mertz, exactly. If a contract isn't binding, it'll make everything way more chaotic. James Mertz, 9033. You are 100% correct. Post of the day. That is a problem. Like, if your word's not good, that's a problem. But when your word's not good and the contract's not good, what are we doing? What are we doing? That's no bueno. Adam, 5821. Has Williams already been paid by Washington? I don't know the dates. Like, I literally have not read the contract. That's a great question, but he signed it. And I don't know if there was like some upfront money or all that stuff. So this is just my guess. If part of that contract, there was, let's say 10% of it was just a sign, and it's, $4 million a year, he got $400,000. If he leaves, he should have to give that back, which I assume they wouldn't really fight. But let's look at it from the other perspective. There's another lawsuit that's going on. This is a great question. Damon Wilson was at Georgia for 2 years, transferred to Missouri. Ironically, he's back in the portal. But he had $390,000 and slash the time that goes with it left on his contract at UGA, and he hit the portal. I don't know if he signed a deal where it said he couldn't transfer. The one at Washington, allegedly, for Damon Williams, says that. But Georgia's suing him. Where that's at, how that goes, I have no idea. Breach of contract, I'm not sure the specific parameters, but it's something along those lines. Again, if you want to go read it, I'm sure you can. I hate that stuff. I hate lawyer speak. I hate all those words you need a thesaurus. I'm not interested. But it's still in the same area. So if he's been paid, my guess is he has to give the money back if he does transfer to LSU or any other institution. Really good question. Next, Jameson Mertz. It doesn't matter if he got paid yet or not. He already signed the contract to stay at Washington. He'll receive his payments on the agreed upon dates. He should, but if he breaks contract, he won't. I'm sure Washington's going to tell him to get bent. Or let me be more clear. Washington's probably not the best word here. And somebody can look this up, drop it in the chat. Again, I don't have any interest. I would wager strongly that it's either one of two following things. It's University of Washington / whatever their collective is, or it's just the collective. In some way, shape, or form, it's the collective. And like I mentioned in the first part of the show, let's say it doesn't have to be Washington this time, but somewhere down the line when this happens, that collective for school A is going to not sue the school that's taking the player. They're going to sue the coach. They're going to make this personal to try to get coaches not to do it. There has to be a direct ramification on the coach. Now, I don't know how that would go, but in some way, shape, or form, they have to make that individual's life miserable. It's not the money, because they can get a booster to pay that off at a school. If they think they're going to win a title, they don't care. A lot of schools don't care. You have to literally make the person that's going to be the head coach at that school miserable. That's got to be your objective, because otherwise they're making so much money, they don't even care. Like Kiffins going to make well over $10 million a year. He didn't care. Penalize him $1 million. You think he cares about that? He would pay $1 million right now to get a ring. He didn't care about that. You have to make him miserable. And I'm just using him as an example because it could be numerous other coaches coming down the road. Just saying. All right. MISAN therapist, Jesus. The sport is a blank show. There needs to be rules. Straightforward as it gets. 100%. Breaking your contract shouldn't even be an option. Right now, it looks like it. Without any buyout clauses and whatnot. Yeah, true. So LSU would be better off paying Washington than creating a larger thing where the Big Ten gets involved in the matter. That's a good point. Does the Big Ten kind of battle here? Because I'm sure, although they're not going to talk about it, people from the front office in the SEC and the Big Ten are going to come together, if they haven't already, and it's like, okay, we're not condoning this, but we're in it, whether we want to be or not. How do we handle this? Because this isn't going away. Those are the two biggest entities in college athletics, the Big Ten and the SEC. And it just happens that the two schools involved are under their wing, or wings as it is. So you have to be able to have some conversation, because you want to, quote unquote, mitigate the damage collectively from a PR standpoint for your leagues. And that gets very touchy, because I'm just going on experience. This is not opinion. This is direct experience. Oftentimes somebody, especially a power team in a conference, in Alabama, LSU, whatever, Michigan or Ohio State, whatever, those teams don't want to go along with what the league says, because they have so much power with their alumni, with what they can do, and they know the league needs them. No offense, but Rutgers doesn't have the same pull as the AD, let's say, at Ohio State. It's true. Mississippi State AD doesn't have the same pull as the individual that's at Texas A&M or Texas or Alabama, whatever. It's just true. So that will be very interesting. Does the Big Ten get involved here? I don't know. I really don't. And when I say get involved, I'm talking about publicly. They're 100% involved behind the scenes. They have to be. That's their job. But I'm talking about from a litigation standpoint. Could the Big Ten sue LSU or Kiffin personally or whatever, or be the plaintiff, if you will, co-plaintiff against LSU if this goes through? I guess. Again, that's for the lawyers to decide. I'm just talking out loud. But I would love to know what people think about that. If there's a lawyer that wants to comment on this, what do you think about that? This is something I'm just now coming up with. And again, based on this post here in the chat, would it be wise for the quote unquote conference, in this situation, it's Big Ten, but later it could be in reverse. It could be a Big Ten school. Michigan State steals a player from Tennessee. I don't know, whatever. Is it wise to put your name on that plaintiff sheet? That's a lot of power when you say SEC or Big Ten, even ACC, Big 12. Like, that's a lot of power. Because then you're getting ESPN involved, whether directly or not. You're getting CBS involved, Fox involved, ABC involved, and every other entity. Because whether they're at that point contractually obligated to them, they're always looking. So everything you do is going to be scrutinized by every person that sends you money. That is a fascinating topic within itself. And I don't know where in the world that's going to go. That is way out of my realm, but like, money is the end all be all. And it's the only reason that we're in this mess, because I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Not you all don't know it. The only reason players aren't employees is because they would make a lot more money in the powers that be, meaning the advertisers, school presidents, boosters, whatever. They make a lot more money by players not being employees. Plus, on the back end, after their career's over, workman's comp, retirement, all that, they don't want them to get it. And when I say more money, I'm talking like 5 to 10 times as much. And I mean that literally. So I had somebody explain it to me, and I'll leave it at that. It's a story for another day. So again, should the Big Ten in this case, or down the road, anybody else that's a conference affiliate, should they get involved and even potentially sue? I could see it, but there are probably ramifications for that. If you got a comment, fire away. I'm against it, even if it helps my team. I appreciate that. That is from James Mertz. I bet a lot of fans are thinking the opposite of James, but they don't want to say it. They don't want to get hacked. They don't want to get smacked around. I get it, though. People blame the NCAA, but the institutions that the NCAA was tasked with governing constantly sue the NCAA when they actually do try to enforce rules and standards. That's not wrong. That is 100%. That is a great point. It's like, we're only for the NCAA if it helps our wallet. When it doesn't help our wallet, we're suing them. That's true. That's been going on for decades. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. So with that being stated, I'm really curious about the following. What in the world is going on with this particular situation that made, again, I'm assuming it was Kiffin that created contact. If it's not, so be it. But whomever at LSU created contact, are they just not, they're just not worried about any ramifications, or is it just worth it? I don't know. Maybe they just thought, nobody's going to do anything. It didn't happen to Miami with the whole situation with Xavier Lucas last year. The DB went for Wisconsin. He's a South Florida kid. He went back home. He had just signed a contract with Wisconsin. I don't know. It's a really interesting situation. Stan Williams 3094. If tampering is proved, Kiffin should be fired for cause. Here's the problem with that. Not saying from an individual standpoint that Stan Williams is wrong. He is not. However, that means we don't have any head coaches. There are 136 teams. In some way, shape, or form, out of those 136 teams, conservatively, I'm going to say 125, conservatively, in some way, shape, or form, tamper. And this is what I mean by tampering. I'm like in the NIL space. I work with a 7-on team. I cover recruiting. I go to events all over. Like many contacts as possible off the record. It's just known. The head coach isn't usually the one that, quote unquote, starts the tampering, but they're involved in it. It's kind of like the RICO Act, what they got the mob with late 60s, early 70s. It's the same principle. You may not have given the direct order, but somebody in your chain of command did. Or you're well aware of it and you didn't stop it. You didn't turn it into all that stuff. So if you do it for one, we're going to have 125 coaches falling off the cliff and being fired. It's the same problem. College athletics have always been about cheating. This is the difference, though. For the longest time, until here just recently, the transfer had to sit out. As long as you can immediately have eligibility, keyword immediately, we're going to have this problem. And it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle. Until kids have to sit out, and again, I don't think that's going to happen again, we're going to have this problem in some way. Now, it's really bad when you don't enforce anything, but we had guys tampering back in the day to a certain degree, but it didn't help them very much because they need them now. They not only need them for the next season, they need them in spring ball. You remember, there's only one window. It ends on the 16th, which technically I'm not sure is really the truth. We're going to find out after spring practice who's going to push that limit. I'm going to tell you something that's going to happen based on this right now with this comment by Stan. There's going to be a school. The following scenario is going to play out 1,000,000%. They're going to have spring ball, either one of the following positions: left tackle, defensive tackle, defensive end, corner, or quarterback. They're going to blow out their knee. That top 10 team is screwed. There's no portal. The next guy up, he's technically the starter now. He's not ready. If they let this go through, Again, the Xavier Lucas thing already happened. He transferred after the portal window. If they let this go through, what do you think is going to happen in spring? You think only one guy that's a key player is going to get hurt in spring? What if some guy's just totally ticked off and he was your key middle linebacker, D tackle, whatever? He says, screw y'all. I'll sit out next year. I don't even care about the portal. I'm just going to sit out. You still got to coach that team, and whether it's fair or not, boosters are not realistic, by the way. They're going to hold you accountable to your record. That's just the way it is. Do you really think they're just going to sit on their hands at school X, whatever program that is? No. They're going to try to get somebody. They're going to test that rule that there's no spring window. It's coming. It's coming. Will the NCAA or anybody, for the love of mankind, do anything about it? I say no, because I think most people are just completely chicken, you know what. That's my opinion. Prove me wrong. And here's one extra thing, because I'm in media. I'm just gonna say this. Not gonna name a school, but just pick one in your own head. Doesn't matter. This scenario plays out, and it's obvious what they're doing. How many local, keyword, local media members of whatever that school may be will call out the school in the local paper, the local radio show, I mean, like in the city, like they're the guy that sits in the front row at the press conference with that head coach, have the cojones to call them out for spring tampering if they lose a player for any reason, whatever it is, and it's a key guy. Sometimes you got to eat it because it's just bad luck. But will they? I'm saying no. And to that end, I'm going to say the vast majority of media members will sit on their hands because A, they're afraid of losing contacts, and B, they probably root for the team. There is no other way around it. Our society is more biased than ever. College football is a part of that. Chris, teams need to be fined for tampering. There needs to be a cap on players. Fine for tampering, obviously. What do you mean cap on players? You talking about how much they can get paid? That's not going to work litigation-wise from what I've heard. I'm not going to dive into that today, but that's a great topic. But I don't think that's going to happen. Does the NCAA want Congress to step in? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. They've kind of been involved. Remember that NIL clearinghouse thing? We haven't heard diddly about it. You know why? Because they don't want to tick off fans. If you're a politician in any given state, especially like I live down south, if I don't care if you got a guy that votes nothing but blue or a guy that votes nothing but red, if you do something in any way that they think is going to cost their team wins, they will vote the other direction. You really think they're going to go out and say something? I doubt it. Politicians are out for their own. Rick Washer, if he signed with Washington, he must honor the contract. Who's enforcing that, Mr. Rick? I hope you're right, but I just don't see it. NH 9877, perhaps the new contracts will have penalty clauses where the player or other school must pay some big amount if the player transfers. This is something I could see because of the Damon Williams and Xavier Lucas situations. You might see these coming in. You really might. And there might be some schools that tell an agent, kick rocks if you don't sign this part. If you redline it, that's fine. Bye. And I can guarantee you the blackballing will start. Because once it gets out that you won't sign that, the major schools will tell you to kick rocks. Maybe a school that doesn't have a chance might spend a little more on you, but you're going to lose. You're going to lose draft stock. And I guarantee you, 100%, because coaches are some of the most thin-skinned people on planet Earth. When it's that player's turn to go to the NFL draft, what'd you think of that guy? And I can't repeat what they're going to say about him because it's a lot of four-letter words. Their draft stock will sink to the toilet. It's just the way it is. Jamison Mertz, I could see buyout clauses starting to be implemented in contracts. There are some, I think, from what I've heard, but I don't go read these. This is a good point. Is it going to be the end-all, be-all? I don't know, but you got to make a buyout. What's the phrase I want? Not only that they'll pay, but doesn't make you look bad. It's partially PR on the school, too. If you sign a 2-year deal for $3 million, like you're an up-and-coming quarterback, you're next up, but you were a freshman last year, and they decided they're going with you. They're going to pay you 1.5 each of the next 2 years. Just use easy math. So it's 3 million. If you get in the portal, there's a buyout, 500K, 200K. I don't know what it is. I could see that. But you could still probably fight. About any contract can be fought. And I like the idea, but I'm not sure how that would work out. John Dobson. DeMond did not sign a play to pay contract. He signed a revenue sharing contract, which Washington can't do nothing about. Based on what? Are you a lawyer? I'm not saying you're wrong, but like, what's the reason for that? It's interesting to me because I think there are a lot of people that believe that it's at least somewhat enforceable. And again, I'm just going to come back to this. That part may be true. But what happens, and maybe it's not this time, but pretty soon this is going to happen. There's going to be personal litigation, not just for the contract, but by not honoring it in some way, shape, or form. There's going to be a personal lawsuit that you dragged, and I don't even know the name of the collective, but whoever UW's collective is, or whatever school it may be, they're going to sue for a different reason, not just the contract, but you made us look bad, defamation, whatever. They're going to come up with big fancy words. That's common. Not just for the player, but for the other team's coach, maybe the school. That's coming. John Dobson, Washington has no leg to stand on because it was not a play-to-pay contract. Okay. Then what's the use of the contract at all? Like, because if it's not worthy, then why do they have to pay? I mean, it has to be something that cuts both directions. Real Cast 2939. So what will they do? I don't know. Like, again, I'm not a lawyer. I have zero interest in being one, but there are a lot of avenues here. Arrow to the ACL. DeMond's representation failed him if he signed an extension just 4 days before knowing what his options are in the transfer portal. That is kind of weird. That's a great point because, like, again, full disclosure, when he was in high school, pretty early, he committed to Ole Miss, and at the time, Kiffin was the head coach. He didn't reach out to Kiffin to see if, because he knew LSU didn't have somebody. Why didn't that happen earlier? That's kind of interesting to me. I don't know the answer to that. Gary Bullock, 3391. Washington should file a $10 million lawsuit against lame quitting and LSU who? And this will quit happening. The wallet rules. That's true. The Big Ten should do the same or this will become the norm. Gary with the heat right there. I don't know if that's realistic, but I brought it up earlier. I'm glad that Gary Bullock is now confirming my thoughts. This is a very touchy situation. If the league gets involved, that's a whole nother set of lawyers, a lot more eyeballs on it directly in court. If the Big Ten wants to get messy, they could. And I don't know how that's going to work. I'm sure in some way, shape, or form, although they may deny it, the Big Ten and the SEC, because those are the conferences that are, whether they want to or not, are in this, they got to talk because they want to mitigate bad PR. Right now, it is bad PR on both sides. Nobody wants to see their players stolen, and nobody wants to be called a bunch of cheaters. It's just true. So to that end, do I think that this is going anywhere good? No, not really. But they got to figure that out, and they make more money than me, so good luck to them. Tiger deal 1. Tampering is done by all teams. The NCAA is to blame, and the football calendar and both recruiting and portal need to be revamped. There's a lot in that. I don't know if you can do about the timing. I know everybody talks about the calendar. There's no way to fix it because you've got academic calendars first. There's no way to fix that. But the other stuff, the NCAA is pretty toothless. I'm not going to argue. XX1 Cena. SEC teams don't even hide their tampering. It's expected from their fan bases. To a certain degree. I live down here. Most of them don't care. They really don't. Tiger deal 1. The NCAA is feckless and totally neutered. 100%. I mean, it's ridiculous how bad that is. I wish that Tiger deal 1 was wrong here, but he's not. Xavier Lucas was Miami, not SEC. No, I didn't say Xavier Lucas was headed to the SEC. I'm just saying he was in a similar situation. I'm not saying that he went to any other conference other than the ACC. He went to Miami. I'm well aware of that. XX1 Cena. I'm not talking about Kiffin. I'm a Wisconsin fan. I know about Lucas. Yeah, I'm sure you do, but it's all under the same realm. Rusty Shepard. Everyone should be against it as a fan because it will hurt your team one day. Yes. I also think any agent who would encourage this should be blacklisted and never allowed to deal with any school again. Legally, he can't really do that, but at the same time, there are a lot, I know this flat out. There are certain guys that teams won't deal with. I already know that. Like, you can call them. That doesn't mean they have to take your call. So it is what it is. Real Cast 2939. Once they start enforcing that, players will unionize and game over at that point. Can they? This is something I'm just asking openly. Why haven't they unionized yet? I'm openly asking. Because if I was a player, I know there's a group like I know that's trying to unionize, but why hasn't it happened? I'm really curious about that. It seems like it would make sense, right? But it hasn't. Tiger deal 1. Until there is a commissioner and the schedule is revamped, this will continue and only get worse, and the haves versus the have-nots will get worse. Fair enough. Arrow to the ACL. So Lane Kiffin tampers with Demond within the 4 days after he signs the contract, while heavily courting and making huge offers to Sorsby and Levitt. Doesn't make sense to me. This is the part I thought about. I'm glad you brought this up, Arrow. I'm guessing that there, again, this is 100% speculation on my part, full disclosure, that at some point he spoke to Demond or somebody in his camp prior. Maybe Demond didn't want to do it. Maybe he changed his mind. That's possible. I mean, he's human. He's allowed to change his mind. Doesn't mean there shouldn't be repercussions because he signed the contract, but maybe that changed. Or maybe it changed because LSU's offer also changed. Maybe they offered him $3 million. Maybe it was 3.5. Remember, allegedly, the contract for Demond with Washington is 4. Now there are reports that the offer for him to go to LSU, again, this is all alleged, is $5 million. That's another $1 million more. That's one number if I've heard. Maybe it's 6, whatever, but it's considerably more, allegedly. That could change somebody's mind. I understand. So with that in mind, I hope people get as much money as they can, but I digress. People should be giving this a thumbs up. Thank you very much, Tiger Deal 1. I appreciate that. This is a great discussion. This is probably the best show I've had since I started doing the live shows. This is a lot of fun. Great questions, great comments. Jameson Mertz, 9033. I think Demond saw Sorsby get 5 from Tech and wanted a bag like that. That's fair. For whatever it's worth, if you want to go back and look at this, just forget the whole saga right now. Demond's freshman year at Washington, at the end of the year, he became the guy. And although they lost, I think it was Louisville, the bowl game last year, just watching him kind of run around and make plays, make a few great passes, you could tell that what was coming was going to be special. The kid loved football, inexperienced, sure, but he's athletic enough to play running back or slot receiver. And he's got a gun for an arm. Put him in at just about any offense, he's going to make you better. So he had a really good year this year. I don't have the stats in front of me, but like he was over 3,000 yards of total offense by a mile. Again, he could play running back. He could play slot. He could play nickel corner. But he's playing quarterback. He's such a good passer. It's insane. So I get why people would want him and why he thinks he could probably get that bag. From Justin Indy Sniper. So if Demond gets out of his contract, what value does contracts even have moving forward? That's what I'm asking. Do they have any? Is there anything that we should have? I mean, what's going on? Like, what's the deal? So I don't know what the answer is to that. It's a problem. Arrow to the ACL. The contracts will change with huge buyouts, much like coaching contracts. Right now, it's just too new of a process. This might be one of the better thoughts I've seen in a while, not just this topic. Thank you for this one, Arrow. It's one thing to have buyouts in little parts of the contract, but if you know there's a chance of this happening, and I'm sure a lot of agents and schools, lawyers, seeing this unfold, they're already like, okay, we got to set this up. We got to have like a concrete plan for what happens amongst us. And we're also going to put something on paper that we're going to go by, a guide that we can loosely use into every contract. And every contract's a little different, but this is the baseline for what we're going to look for. If you're going to buy out, you got to pay this. They got to have like behind the scenes agreements, the lawyer, the president, the AD, all that. Like, because that, whether it's fair or not, the president, everybody's got to be involved. When you're spending millions on one guy, yes, you've got to have contracts that have buyouts, and like you got to earn your way out. If you want to leave, okay. Your contract's $5 million, you got to pay $2 million to get out, or whatever. Again, I don't know what the number will be, but this is a very big deal. Tiger deal 1. DeMond saw that bag Sorsby was getting and was originally offered by Kiffin out of high school to Ole Miss, and now he gets to make 20% more. Yes, buyouts are coming for sure, 100%. Now, this part I like. I'm just going to bring this up, this little side piece to the money. If you're DeMond, and he's very, again, huge fan. I'm not a Washington fan in the least, but because he's so good, when they'd come up, oh yeah, I would click on them just to see what he's doing. If you want 5 minutes, 10 minutes of fun, go to YouTube, type in DeMond Williams. Just type in DeMond Williams. I get it. He knows what he's capable of. So he was motivated. Hey, this guy's not better than me. I get that. I love the competitive juices. I'm not hating on DeMond. But at the same time, that money, like, it could lead you in the wrong direction. He'd already signed the deal. So there's two sides to that coin. Justin, Indy Sniper. Can they legally enforce buyouts with players as of now? That's what we're trying to figure out. I'm kind of thinking no. If so, why hasn't it been done already? I think we're on the same page there, Justin. I'm not sure you can. And let's bring in something else. Every state is different. Where would the lawsuit take place? Or is it, here's a key word, not lawsuit as an individual, lawsuits. If there becomes a civil case in this, like they sue Kiffin, what if they go with an Open Records Act to try to get Kiffin in trouble? This is going to happen eventually too, 100%. If they go with an Open Records Act and he was contacting him on any phone of his family member, whatever, that's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly. Just saying. So with that in mind, I don't think they're super enforceable, but it depends on the state, depends on the specific judge. Like, it gets really dicey. Dame T. Walker, 5977. I'm probably on an island, but Wayne as the villain is so enjoyable. Guy signs a contract, and Wayne said, to hell with your contract. We have $6 million for you. I guess Wayne likes to be the bad guy to a certain degree. Maybe not as much as he used to. He's a lot more mature than he used to be, but still, at the end of the day, I think you got some truth in that statement. Arrow, the state of lawsuit is filed in. Okay. So what he's talking about, since Washington filed it against DeMond, like right now, to my knowledge, it's against DeMond and or his agent / the company. I don't know which one it is. But let me ask you this. If, again, I don't know if it's University of Washington or it's the group of boosters, the collect, whatever. If they go against Kiffin, does Kiffin have to go up to Washington? Or do they got to go down to Louisiana? And it doesn't have to be this case, because again, this is going to happen over and over again. You can see this coming. If you do a personal lawsuit, like, what is that? Not the player, but the coach that would be gaining the player, like for tampering. How does that work? I think that would be really interesting. Brandon White, Y1M. I'm an LSU fan, and I don't love the optics of this. I wouldn't want someone to sign with us, then leave a week later. I realize there are no major obstacles to close the loopholes, but that's a very fair way to look at it. Obviously, you want the best player for the Tigers. 100% get it. But again, I'm just going to say the following out loud. Most of you probably know this. Humans can tend to be vindictive when money's involved, or something they're passionate about, politics, family, their favorite team, in this case. I'm going to tell you something that's going to happen to Kiffin. 1,000,000%. Fair or not, this is about to happen. It probably has to a certain degree anyway. He's going to get blackballed, even if it's privately. 7-on-7 coaches, there's going to be trainers, whatever. He's going to tick off some people, and it's going to cost LSU. Now, may not matter because LSU is such a powerful machine, but that's going to happen. People have judgments and opinions. Tiger deal 1. Also, the mid-tier schools like a Colorado will have more boosters that will just say, no, thank you. Cuban is bankrolling IU. That is true. And Signetti has proven he can coach. They will be in the mix going forward. That's a great point. The schools that are more likely to not worry about are the ones that got big bankrolls that are winning right now. The haves, have nots, like Indiana's obviously jumped into that. I could see that being something that gets discussed more. Brandon White, Y1M, something needs to happen, 100%. Justin, Indy Sniper, what about enforcing tampering rules? What a great concept. How do they fairly start enforcing them when most teams already violate them? Great question. Or do they just make an example of someone and go from there? To that point, your last one is the simplest point here. Somebody's got to be number one. Like there has to be a first. In whatever school that is, if it's LSU or anybody else, that fan base is going to do this. Why us? There's no way around it. You have to start somewhere. And let me be honest, does anybody really think that the powers that be really like Kiffin's attitude, like the way he tweets, etc.? Sometimes it's funny, but some of the things he says in the past, like those are all on record. When he was at Tennessee, when he was at SC, that's going to follow him the rest of his life. And again, he's a lot more mature publicly than he used to be. But a lot of people don't like him. I don't know him personally. I never met the guy. But a lot of people, I can tell you, in the business and recruitment, don't like him. I wonder if LSU will get hit because people don't like Kiffin. I wouldn't be surprised because, again, bias, we all have it in some way, shape, or form. That's a factor. Justin Knox, 6890. If you're going to punish LSU, punish Twitter, every team for doing this, because I know for a fact LSU is not doing 100%. As I said earlier, I don't know when you came into the chat, Justin, I think it's 136 teams, somewhere around that in the FBS. My conservative estimate, just to reiterate, this is from firsthand knowledge, conversations with coaches, players, they're getting the money, all that. About 125 head coaches in some way, shape, or form are involved. Either they, A, know about it and didn't do anything to stop it, B, were directly involved, or C, both. You're going to fire everybody? You're going to reprimand everybody? They don't have enough agents. That's one of the other problems. And to that end, even if you're a school that doesn't want to cheat, here's the other problem. Your boosters, your president, your AD, they expect you to win, obviously. But what if your arch rival is just blatantly doesn't give a, you know what, we're cheating? You think your fan base is going to give you a pass? Your AD, your president? No. Puts those guys in a really awkward spot. So once your rival does it, you're at a disadvantage, yet you're held to the same standard. It's not a good place to be. Yep, I get that. Arrow, the problem is proving tampering. This is where I just want to bring this up again before I read the rest of Arrow's post. To prove it, somebody's got to do a records act every single time. Every email, every text message, not just Lane, like his whole staff. It's got to get ugly and messy. To be clear, you would obviously be dragging the coach and his assistants through the mud. But you would also be dragging the LSU logo through the mud. I can tell you, I've lived in Louisiana. Those people are extremely prideful of their flagship institution. Once that happens and the fallout happens, other schools around will be like, ugh, we don't want that. That would have its own ramifications. XX1 Cena. If you don't cheat, you're left behind. True. As simple as that. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That you must have lived down south at some point, or you do now. That's a saying around the SEC. Like literally. It's hilarious. It's been going on for as long as I can remember. Justin Knox, 6890. Definitely something needs to change. It's buck wild, man. It really, really is buck wild. Final thoughts here for me. I'm going to be following this. We'll probably talk about it a number of times in the next 2 weeks, I'm sure. But until it's finished, again, if you're listening to this live, comment. If you're listening to this later on, go to the YouTube page, go to social media, even if you're not tagging me, and I'm FB Scout _Florida for those of you on X. tag me, whatever you want to do. It's crazy. Justin Indy Sniper with a great line here. Wild West out here, 100%. I'm pretty straightforward on it. I don't like what's going on. I understand why Kiffin and DeMond would want to hook back up because, again, he was committed to Ole Miss back in the day before he ended up at Washington. But this is a problem for college football. It's a problem for everybody involved, and it's got ramifications in numerous different ways. I don't like it because college football is my favorite thing, but this is the mess we're in. We got to figure it out. So if you have not already, please like and subscribe to the Portal Podcast. I do noon shows just about every day. I'm in the middle of moving, by the way, so I'm probably going to miss a few. I know next Wednesday I'm going to be driving a truck down to where I'm moving. It is what it is. I'm getting closer to prospects, make it a little easier for myself long term. Short term, it sucks, but my lease is up when my lease is up. It's just not the greatest timing with the portal and all that, but it is what it is. So the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be very busy. I might miss a couple of noon shows, but in general, every day we do a live show and have fun talking about the biggest topics for the transfer portal, NIL. And oh, by the way, just a little reminder, we're close. The big junior days are coming up. Georgia, USC, Texas, Ohio State. Last week of January through about 15th of February, you're going to see elite players all over. We're going to see the cycle start again. Those lists are going to be talking about some of that, some of those commitments, breaking down. I'm going to be doing portal podcasts in terms of like individual schools, how I think they've done, at least to that date. I have more content than I could possibly ever get to. Going to be a lot of fun right here on the Portal Podcast. So again, please like and subscribe. Truly appreciate you stopping in. We will see you again soon.